Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Kenya's finance minister is arrested on graft charges. Henry Rotich faces accusations of corruption linked to the awarding of a $450 million contract for the construction of dams in the country. Also, communities living around the site of the Ethiopia Airways flight that went down in March, killing 157 people, continue to feel the effects of the accident. Farmers will have to miss an essential harvest after the continued seizure of their fields by investigating authorities. And I am joined by Baaba Maal, the legendary Senegalese singer whose voice most recently echoed throughout the soundtrack of Black Panther. He's in Europe on tour, hoping to raise awareness about the effects of climate change on his continent. But first, Kenya's finance minister's handed himself in for questioning as part of a fraud investigation. In an unprecedented move against a sitting minister, the public prosecutor ordered Henry Rotich's arrest in connection to the alleged misuse of funds in the building of 2 dams in the country. Rotich has denied doing anything wrong. He and 27 others face 8 charges ranging from conspiracy to defraud to financial misconduct. Reuben Kiama is in Nairobi. He tells us more about what Rotich is suspected of having done.
Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich and 27 other officials are accused of fraud and corruption-related offences in connection with a multi-million-dollar project that was meant to build 2 dams. Now, police say their investigation has shown there has been misuse of public funds in the dam project overseen by an Italian company. According to the chief prosecutor here, Nourdin Haji, he said the initial cost budgeted for this particular project was supposed to cost $450 million, but he accused Treasury officials of allegedly inflating that figure by adding an additional $164 million. Also, police say that advance payments were made for the work to begin, but their investigation has shown that work has not started. This is the first time Kenya is seeing a sitting cabinet secretary or minister being charged on corruption offences. So we expect to see the minister step aside so that investigations can continue, and also we expect the president to name a replacement.
Reuben Kiama there for us. Now, 17 people were killed in a car bombing in Mogadishu on Monday. Witnesses say that the vehicle veered out of traffic and detonated outside of a hotel near the international airport. Dozens of people were also hurt. Al-Shabaab extremists have claimed responsibility. The attack comes a little over a week after 26 people were killed in an assault on the Medina Hotel in the city of Kismayo. And at least 6 people were killed on Monday as Shiite Muslim protesters clashed with police in Abuja. Hundreds of members of the Islamic movement in Nigeria marched once again, demanding the release of their leader, Ibrahim Zakzaki. Now, he's been held since December 2015, but was only charged in 2018. Police reportedly used live ammunition on crowds as demonstrators threw petrol bombs. Rights watchdogs claim that hundreds of Zakzaki supporters have been killed by security forces over the years. Now, farmers whose lands surround the crash site of the Ethiopian Airlines plane that killed all 157 on board back in March have been unable to access their land since the tragedy. The fields have been seized by the federal police and left to lie fallow, meaning that this year farmers will have to go without a harvest. Our correspondents report.
As is usual for this time of year, the farmers in Bishoftu are out in their fields working. But not all. Some can no longer access their lands, which lie fallow, because of this. A crater almost 10 metres deep and 30 metres wide. It's the crash site of the Ethiopian Airlines Boeing 737 MAX, which went down in March. 4 months later, the lands around the crash remain fenced off by police, as the search for debris is still ongoing. It's a perimeter that local farmers think is too wide.
At first, only 2 lots were impacted. But then we learned that the area where the federal police were located was also banned. In total, the police seized land from 10 different owners around the area of the accident. So this land won't have a harvest this year.
The farmers are supposed to get compensation, but they haven't got it yet, and they are running out of patience.
There have been lots of speeches and promises, but nothing has been put in place.
The disaster claimed the lives of 157 people and happened just 5 months after another fatal crash involving a Boeing 737 in Indonesia. The aerospace giant Boeing is now facing dozens of lawsuits from the families of the victims.
Well, now, I'm really excited about my guest tonight. He was one of my favourite artists when I was a kid. So Baaba Maal is one of Senegal's most famous exports. The singer and guitarist has had an international audience since the late 80s, well before the more recent rise in global appreciation of sounds from the continent. Now, although his career is rooted in traditional African music, he's as relevant and sought after today as ever. Most recently, his voice was the backbone of the soundtrack of Black Panther. He's currently on a mini tour of Europe, and I'm lucky enough to have grabbed him on his way through Paris. Baaba Maal, thanks so much for coming in.
My absolute pleasure to be
You
here.
heard me there going, complete fangirl. Like, I'm not going to hide it. But so, as I mentioned there, you've been at this for a couple of decades now. Have you seen much change in terms of the audience for African music?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. At the beginning, it was a little bit hard to find our place in the market. It was printed and called world music, which a term that we didn't understand why it was called that. But at the end of the day, this world music led us to be performing in most prestigious stages, festivals, and everywhere in the world, and also to be open to the rest of other style of music, to mix it with our music, and to bring something new on the continent back.
And you're still doing new things. So most recently, you were involved in the soundtrack for Black Panther. What was it like working on that film?
It was a surprise. I can't say I'm very well honored to be part of this project with this film, Black Panther, which is something that was a surprise for my country, Senegal, myself. But I can say also it was an experience. I have been working in the music of films since a long time. I did Passion with Peter Gabriel. I sing some songs in Black Hawk Down. But with Black Panther, it was something more, I think, received by the people, by people I wanted to recognize that African music, the percussions, the voices, the music itself can fit with this big industry, or this film industry.
Because a lot of the percussionists actually recorded in your studios, didn't they?
It was recorded in my studio. It was an opportunity to be asked to bring musicians who was working with me, like the kora player, the percussions, and then to be asked at the end of the day, can you put your voice on the music? That was a really big thing to do. And that thing means that everything is possible on the continent. You can be living in a small place, but if you know what you're doing and how to make it happen, I think you can go worldwide and to receive whatever you are looking for.
And in line with that, you're using your international platform to try and raise awareness about another one of your passions, which is the effects of climate change on the continent. How do you bring your professional musicality and your focus on kind of humanitarian issues regarding the environment together?
I have been working with some NGOs like Oxfam International in the past when it was a critical situation in the Sahel, because there was no rain and people was very vulnerable. So we went with the music to play concerts, also to inform people, and at the same time to call on partners, the governments, for example, to put money and to help the people at least for 6 months to wait for the next season, and also to rise up our voices to say we need from the government really strong agricultural plans so to support people. So I travel all over the world. I play concerts. In between of the songs, I talk about these issues, and next year will be the 35th year of my band. We're going to celebrate all year this anniversary of the band. And in the anniversary, I will be talking about these issues, which is to talk about climate change. it's a big impact on the continent, but at the same time, we don't see any solutions coming from the people who are talking really about climate change.
And you're also trying to to raise awareness about climate change amongst people on the ground, because you were mentioning to me earlier that you feel like a lot of people in Africa don't actually understand the ramifications of climate change because that message hasn't been
I think
communicated.
so. I think they don't understand it really because they don't get informed about the reality of climate change. And most of the kids who are moving from Africa, trying to come to Europe, for example, sometimes it's a political situation, but most of the time it's because they don't arrive to do the work they used to do because there is no rain, there is no agriculture, there is no fishing, and they try to go. I think we can fix that. We can inform them, and they can raise up their voices to ask from the governments to give them the better plan so they can stay at home and work down there. So alongside of that, I have a movement which is called the NANCA, which is based on farming, fishing, and making agriculture, and to support a lot of projects of development down there.
And so you use your music to raise awareness of these messages, and you very kindly agreed to sing us out with one of the compositions that you've made that is inspired by your passion for raising awareness about climate change.
That's the song, Leki.
Okay,
Leki means tree. And I think we have to find solutions to make that happen on the continent.
Well, thank you very much, Baaba Maal, for coming in. Thanks very much for watching us. That's all we have time for. We're going to leave you with the sounds of Baaba Maal.
Sukabe maube ngarenje hen, goto men fo yo au leke. Leki na falon ilam tobo, ne adangurna me chelal banlo. Soleki suki wadi bubri, goto men fo yo auleke. Babo Malik Omar Bayal, Babo Omar Bayal, ngari lumbol. Sono mai bena joto yorbe rono benda nyama. Sono mai bena juwa urbe dono koida nyama Malik Omar Bayal, bandu sile Omar Bayal. Sukabe maube ngarenjen, goto men fo yo auleke.
Thank you so much, Baaba Maal. That's all we have time for. Thanks for joining us. Thank you so much.
Versailles, the Louvre, Mont Saint-Michel are well-known stars of French heritage. But French genius and France harbors many other hidden treasures. The arts, gastronomy, architecture, as well as nature's wonders. Come along with France 24, discover France's living heritage. From young apprentices to accomplished craftsmen and farmers, to Michelin star sporting chefs, meet these people whose passion for their professions preserve and drive French heritage.
You are here on France 24 and France24.com. New technology, the latest innovation and its impact on a digital society.
Didn't even know about it.
Tech 24, presented by Julia Seeger and Dhananjay Kadilkar on France 24 and France24.com.